Philadelphia 76ers are now off to a 5-1 start to the season after a business-like victory over the lowly Brooklyn Nets, in which we got a few surprise performances from names you would not expect. This is another example of why this team is worth buying into, as they show another area of how they can shine, doing it without Joel Embiid in its entirety today. I am fired up after the 5-1 start here. This team is proving why they are worth buying into, and do want to highlight a couple noteworthy performances as well as some storylines emerging off the court today. So to dive right into things, it was a 129-105 victory by the Sixers over the Nets. The Brooklyn Nets, and to interject before I jump into the stats here, this Nets team does have a chance to be like historically bad this year. And it is clearly intentional that they want to maximize their chances at getting a franchise-changing player, securing the number 1 overall pick. But I do have to hat tip the strategy of putting Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr. on the same team. I mean, those guys are straight up bucket hunting out there rather than playing real basketball. And by the way, they spent 5 first-round picks this year, all on rookies who are hardly playing any minutes whatsoever, and the minutes that I have seen, kind of deservingly so. I was not particularly high on any of those guys coming into the year, from Nolan Traore to Jaeger Demon. Drake Powell, probably the guy I have the most optimism for. Ben Seraph doesn't move me whatsoever, but nonetheless, this is clearly a team that has chalked it up on the season, and tonight was a night where it looked like they quit. But the Sixers was a team that took advantage of that after the Nets hung with them in the first quarter, 40-37 lead by the Sixers. They blew things open a little bit in the second, and then a punch back by the Nets in the third, outscoring the Sixers 23-17 there, and then the Sixers absolutely breaking it open in the fourth quarter, outscoring the team 39-27 to the point where they could empty the bench and give this team some well-deserved rest. Now, at the top of the production here, I do have to shout out Kelly Oubre Jr. specifically here. Finished with 29 points. He scored 22 of those in the first quarter, and Oubre's been a guy that's been a bit of a sore spot for a lot of Sixers fans out there. Not loving the shot selection. Just something about him does seem to rub people the wrong way, but I'm here for you guys to see the light. That Kelly Oubre Jr. is a good basketball player, people. This is a guy that in the right role can be incredibly effective, and on nights like tonight, you see the flashes where he can scale up. Now, thankfully, Kelly Oubre Jr. did seem to avoid some sort of significant injury here, that he's been battling an ankle issue that has not become public until this point, but at the tail end of this third quarter, as he went to close out on a Michael Porter Jr. three-pointer there, came up really lame, went right to the locker room. Now, we did get the update following the game here that Kelly Oubre Jr. tweaked his ankle and was cleared to return tonight per Nick Nurse, but he did not need to bring him back in, as at this point the game was under control. And Oubre himself got that little post-game interview with the TV broadcast, speaking after the game, was asked about the issue specifically, and said, yeah, it's been something I've been dealing with. I re-rolled it tonight, but I'll be right back out there the next game. And I do respect that about Kelly as well. He's a hard hat guy, man. He's a dude that you want in your corner, and I respect that he continues to lace him up and fight and compete for this Sixers team in the way that he does. So shout out to Kelly. It was nice to see him get a little bit of shine and lead the team in scoring today. Now, to look around the rest of the box score here, Tyrese Maxey, even on a game where it does not feel like he's completely shining, the stats speak for himself. That he still played 39 minutes in the matchup, which is a bit disappointing to me, as I would like to scale back that, and I think there was an opportunity to do it more than was put on display. But he does have young legs, and with those legs, he put forth 26 points, had 7 assists, 6 rebounds there, really controlled things, and I thought set the tone early on in this one. Not quite the shining performance for VJ Edgecombe for the sky-high bar that he's already established himself, but still in 33 minutes of work, had 16 points, had a rebound, had 2 rebounds, 3 assists, also had 3 steals there. It was a fine VJ game. This was a matchup coming in that I did wonder, could this be an opportunity for him to shine, put all his talents on full display? This was a stylistically type of basketball game that I thought he could thrive in. Did not end up being the case, but he was far from bad. This is not a critique of VJ type of performance. He just did not shine in the stat sheet the way I sort of was initially braced for coming in. But a guy that did make the most of that opportunity was Quentin Grimes, man. In 32 minutes off the bench, he had 22 points, added a career-high 13 assists, also had 7 rebounds along with this. And I think this was probably the most complete Quentin Grimes performance that we've seen across the entirety of his Sixers tenure. That the playmaking is an area that we have not really seen put on full display a ton, that he just has not been given that type of opportunity in the offense. I thought he showed a little bit of advanced playmaking skills in this one. I mean, the assist that ultimately ended up breaking his career high record, which at the time was 11. His 11th assist in this one, as 10 was his previous career high. A little behind the backdrop to Trendon Watford, who finished on the fast break there. And there is like a little bit of advanced basketball feel as a playmaker that I had not seen from Quentin Grimes, or he had not shown in a Sixers uniform to this point. That does change things and open things up in a different way, and that's a huge part. It is a great thing that he is back on the Sixers roster. And for all the noise about Grimes potentially being rattled or frustrated by the offseason, Gotta love that he's just throwing around tweets like this, that the vibes are immaculate. And that is something that is being echoed between the walls of the Sixers locker room from just about every player suiting up. Now, to dive down the list a little bit more, did want to acknowledge Trendon Watford, as this was by far his best performance. This was a guy I was pretty high on from the offseason signing perspective, and my prediction that he will end up the starting power forward when push comes to shove on the season. He finally had a night where he showcased what he can do as a basketball player. In 25 minutes of action, he finished with 16 points, had 9 rebounds and 7 assists, also had a block there. And the thing that intrigues me about Watford is they basically played him as a point guard for a good duration of this game. That there were stretches where he was essentially running the offense. And I think there's some really unique looks that you can create off that. When we have players like Tyrese Maxey, like McCain, that are so effective of off-ball movers, of creating shots for themselves without needing the ball in their hand, when you have a guy like Watford that can capitalize on those looks, that leaves some pretty intriguing offensive potential. And that's a direction I expect this Sixers team to continue leaning on to. Now, to wrap up a couple of the other statistical shout outs there, Adem Bona, man, I've been an Adem Bona guy and still believe in him as a talent, but the foul issues just have to be cleaned up. And in general, that's not something that I'm super critical of. That I do believe, like, when you get 5 fouls, you can use them however you want. It's kind of how I view things, but that principle applies far more when you're playing a backup center role. On a night like tonight where there was no Joel Embiid, Adem, this is your chance to grab the opportunity, show what you can do. And he picked up 3 fouls in the first quarter. Really frustrating stuff to an extent there. There's just going to be growing pains with it. The level of athleticism and explosiveness that he possesses at his size is worth sticking with and going through the growing pains there, but he does still have to connect a little bit of just basketball feel and knowing when to take your chances, and sometimes you just got to chalk it up. You can't block every single shot in the world, and I think that's a lesson that Adem Bona is still learning in the process there. Now, going down the list, it was nice to see the debut of Janai Broome, Hunter Salah scoring his first NBA basket as well, even Kyle Lowry seeing the floor. That across the board, a great team win for this Sixers team. Now, I mentioned at the start of this that there is no Joel Embiid. Nothing new or of note as far as the injury regard. This just was a scheduled rest day for him, and I will continue to lean on the fact that I'm comforted that there is a game plan, that this is not just throwing him out there on an every night basis whenever he's available, having him play 40 minutes and just hoping for the best that he's healthy at the end. For the first time in the entirety of his career, there's this calculated, conceptual plan of this is the pathway to getting Joel Embiid to at his healthiest, at his best, when the moment is at its largest in a postseason setting, because those conversations are back to front and center. This team is 5-1. This team looks like it has some legitimate stuff to us. We should be talking about a postseason potential for this Sixers team, and Joel Embiid has to be kept in mind for that. Now, while he was on the sideline on his off day today, he did end up managing to still catch a fine from the NBA league office, as we got the news that a $50,000 fine for Joel for his DX celebration, what is considered a, quote, lewd gesture from the NBA league office there. Now, another example of Joel Embiid being back is taking his time to be Joel Embiid online here and quote tweeting the NBA communications post announcing this, saying, "Y'all better start fining the refs for doing the lewd blocking foul gesture, since I'm not allowed to do it," and hashtag NFL, which I believe that's a reference to the No Fun League there. I love it from Joel. When he is trolling like that it means he's having fun. He seems to be in higher spirits than I think has been the case for really several years. And I think that is directly tied to the youthful energy of this team, that he has carried the burden of this franchise for over a decade to this point, wearing the weight of the world on his shoulders for these second round expectations. If you haven't made it past the second round, this has to be the year that you get over the hump. And finally, it feels like he's got a little bit of freedom. Now, we will circle back to those conversations, and I continue to stand 10 toes down on the take that this team will not reach its peak until Joel Embiid comes along. That yes, it's fun to have these young guards running up and down the floor. And I do believe that there is a blueprint to winning a ton of regular season games in the way that they're exactly playing. But when the game slows down in a postseason setting, when there is a half-court ability that is necessary there, you're going to want a guy that can roll out of bed and score 20 points at the NBA level on any given night, because that is still who Joel Embiid is. So we will work through that process there. And again, I love the fact that there is this strategy in place for bringing him along, for scaling up his role as the season progresses until we reach that point. But his pockets are going to be a little bit emptier in the process there. Now, we are too early to be fully doing these standings watches. We are 6 games in the season to this point, but you can see see the Sixers sitting right there in second place in the Eastern Conference. The Chicago Bulls at 5-0, the only team ahead of them. And I do bring that up as to say that is the next matchup for the Sixers team. Now, if you're critical of this start to the season being a fluke for the Sixers, you absolutely should be critical of this being a fluke for the Chicago Bulls. I think there are more legitimate reasons to buy into this team, and I think it's going to be a really interesting measuring stick matchup there. I'm not buying that the Bulls are legitimate, but I am buying that they are more, I guess, competitive than has been the case in past years. That this has been a team really stuck in that NBA purgatory of just in that play-in mix, in that 8th to 12 seed type range for several years to this point. They have some young, exciting talents that are going to be fun to watch match up with the Sixers team. From Matas Buzelis, Kobe White, I know has battled some injuries to start there, but Ayo Dezuna, they have guys that can get the job done, and the Sixers are going to have to bring their best punch there. So I'm excited by that matchup, and think that will tell us a little bit more about this Sixers team, but I don't know what more you could ask for to see at this point. They've won games in different ways at every stage of the season to this point. And I love that tonight was the first business-like win that we've seen. This was not scrapping to the final buzzer. This was not coming behind in the fourth quarter. This was a team that looked at another team worse than them and said, we're stepping on your necks right now. And that's exactly what the Sixers did tonight. So shout out to the Philadelphia 76ers for checking that box again. Needed to see this. This was the first game of the season. I felt like this is one where they absolutely should win, that this is a team that you have to take it to. And they did exactly that when push came to shove in this game. So very thrilled for the results of tonight. Very thrilled for what is still to come, and cannot wait to break things down from every single angle right here on this channel. So make sure you guys are tapped in and join along with me right here on Sixers Digest. The best way by doing so is by hitting that subscribe button below. Drop a like on this video here. Give me your thoughts on the matchup tonight in the comments section. I'll be back. Talk with you next time. Peace.